Last episode, we left off with Danny standing in front of Amy's house holding a hammer, undoubtedly going to vandalize her house. I don't know what he thought he was going to do, maybe break a window, bang some dents into the side of her house? For now, we'll just have to remain in suspense as episode 3 starts off with Amy and George at the therapist's office for their couples counseling session. Amy is spouting off some bullshit she thinks Dr. Lin wants to hear as George stupidly believes her. Dr. Lin asks Amy how she's been dealing with the stress of her business deal. Amy thinks about Danny. Please explain, how does a person who is constantly vandalizing your property, chasing you across town, and leaving you threatening voicemails contributing to your stress relief? How do you relieve stress? Oh, well, I go to Spain and decide to poke a bull in the eye so he'll try to kill me. What even is this show? We see Danny going up the steps to Amy's house when the motion sensor porch light defeats him by scaring the crap out of him. Danny falls down the stairs. Amy continues lying to Dr. Lin, saying the meditation links George sent to her have been working, in an attempt to also tell George what he wants to hear. If Amy were any more fake, she'd turn into plastic. Amy says her parents both suppressed their feelings, which may have caused her to repeat the same pattern. Again, just textbook therapy bullshit to appease Dr. Lin. George is so dense that he believes Amy and says he thinks she's had a breakthrough by saying that. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. It's so good to see just how effective this couples counseling session is. Dr. Lin is probably thinking, yeah, I'm gonna make so much money off of these two. Danny is unsuccessfully wiping the paint off his truck, gets frustrated, throws the towel, and has an adult-sized temper tantrum. Welcome to the consequences of your own actions. I guess Danny is also dysregulated. Paul is seen with a bag of fast food on one of the upper levels of the motel, sees Danny get mad, ignores him, and goes to a room where he sends Kayla/Amy a message complaining about Danny. Amy sends Paul a message back, which amplifies her hypocrisy about going to couples counseling. Danny is wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled up, obviously making a second attempt to commit crime after his embarrassing defeat by Amy's porch light earlier. He's determined to succeed in doing something bad. If Danny put as much effort into being a better handyman as he does trying to vandalize Amy's property, maybe he'd have a successful business. He puts lighter fluid on Amy's car and lights a match. Good to see that wholesome Christian behavior coming from Danny again. He only stops when he hears a child laughing. He looks up and sees June in the back seat, and his second crime attempt is thwarted by a little girl. In a very historic, monumentous occasion for the first time in this show and his life, Danny makes a moral choice in the correct direction. He puts out the match, wipes off as much lighter fluid as he can with his sleeve, and runs off. We can hear him say, "What the fuck am I doing?" Are you confused because you actually made a moral choice for once in your pathetic life? Today's ugly title card is a depiction of George and Amy hugging each other while literally stabbing each other in the back. The title of this episode is I Am Inhabited by a Cry. If this episode is anything like the last one where I was bored to tears, the title might actually make sense for once. Danny comes home looking for Paul. The vacuum cleaner is heard from one of the rooms. Danny yells at Paul to turn off the vacuum, but Paul ignores Danny because he's still mad at Danny for being a dumbass and going into business with Isaac. Finally, Danny screams, "I almost lit a baby on fire!" Paul is completely unfazed because he knows his brother is a degenerate piece of shit, so he responds with, "Sounds like you and Isaac are killing it." Paul finishes up cleaning, grabs a bag, puts his shoes on, and proceeds to leave. Danny asks Paul why he's wearing nice clothes and cleaning the motel. I guess Danny wanted to live in an environment that mirrored his soul, a disgusting pile of filth. When Paul cleaned it, he killed Danny's dream of being featured on the next episode of Hoarders. Paul says that he and Kayla have been talking and that when you see something you like, you should go get it. Paul is trying to improve himself, once again being the only character on a positive trajectory. Paul leaves, Danny gets upset and confused about the clean room and picks up the church pamphlet Veronica gave him, calling it stupid shit. There's the writer's true feelings about Christianity. George and Amy are standing with their arms linked in front of their tiny daughter as she bosses them around. Seriously, she's like 5 or 6 maybe. June tells Amy to smile bigger. Feminists, smile more.
Said, did you know it takes less muscles to smile than frown?
Amy's phone vibrates and she acts like a baby at a family Christmas photo session who keeps getting distracted by a shiny. June tells her to stay still. June is trying to capture the essence of George and Amy on her canvas. Amy's phone buzzes again and she goes over to check on her phone. She sees notifications from Paul and quickly swipes them away before George can see them. Amy offers to take a family selfie, then quickly holds her phone against her chest in case Paul messages again. George asks if he can see the selfie, so Amy shows him. George becomes self-conscious about his cheeks and asks if his face is getting fatter. If there's one consistent thing about this show besides the incredible immorality and insufferable pretentiousness, it's George's missing testosterone. I'm not saying men never fuss about their looks, but I usually hear men wanting their muscles to be bigger or their hair to look stylish. I don't think I've ever heard a man obsess over whether or not he has chipmunk cheeks. Amy and George go to admire June's handiwork and immediately lie to her about how beautiful and stunning and brave and good and perfect it all is. It's a child's drawing, and it's about as good as you'd expect a child's drawing to be. I'm kidding, this child is much worse. She has painted her entire family as Smurfs with yellow eyes and spiky hair. It looks like they've all been electrocuted. Usually, kids will draw stick figures of their family members and give them the appropriate hair color that matches at least, but not June. Stunning and brave and good and perfect. June has drawn the entire family as blueberries with legs that are about 1 foot tall. There are no different colors between their hair or their faces. They're just blue. I'm blue, wabba-dee, yabba-da, yabba. In reality, June's drawing actually means that she doesn't think her family is human. Amy leaves for work and takes a photo of her security alarm as she walks by. She sends the picture to Danny to taunt him because she wants him to break in.
I understand nothing.
George is heard saying, if I see him around, I'm gonna rough him up. George, you found a half a drop of testosterone. Better hang on to it tightly, like your life depends on it. Amy doesn't believe George as she flippantly says, okay, and then leaves. Danny's in the foyer of Veronica's church, and I'm wondering why he hasn't burst into flames yet. He looks at some of the pamphlets out for display and then opens the door to the auditorium to join the church service. Edwin is singing a worship band song and Danny goes to find a chair. He's overcome with emotion and starts crying, probably because he's feeling intense shame for acting in such a horrible show. I'd be crying too if I was cast in this piece of trash identifying as entertainment. Veronica looks over at Danny with a comforting look. Danny starts singing along with the worship song, but then remembers he's still been cast in this show and breaks down crying. One of the congregants, that's a hard word to say, one of the congregants comes over and prays for Danny. Don't worry, Danny, there won't be a season 2. Your show is so awful, you'll definitely get canceled. It'll be okay. Amy is at Jordan's above-ground concrete bunker that is identifying as a house. I don't even know how to describe this other than it's ugly. It looks like there's a didgeridoo attached to the front of it. Amy apologizes that George wouldn't sell his mother's ass chair to Jordan, but Jordan doesn't really care about it anymore. I'm losing my patience for caring about this episode. Jordan asks Amy about her business, and Amy says millennials can't afford kids, so they're choosing to buy more houseplants instead. And cats. Jordan doesn't care about this bit of conversation either. Neither do I. Jordan asks Amy if she's ever been to China. Amy says yes, once when she was 6, but she looks constipated as she answers. I'm reminded of this M-Train training video I reacted to where an asshole refuses to answer the "where are you from" question because he's insecure about the answer. This whole conversation annoys me because it's stupid leftists making a big deal out of small talk. It's called small talk because it's supposed to be insignificant things you can talk to people about. The writers are treating it like some kind of imaginary racism. This is different than in the first episode when Mia just assumed Amy knew how to speak a random Asian language because of the way Jordan phrased the question. Jordan asked, "Have you ever been to China?" It's innocuous because Jordan didn't assume Amy had been. That's why she was asking. If Jordan had said, "You've definitely been to China, right?" that would be a question that would make someone feel uncomfortable. Jordan tells Amy there are some beaches in China worth checking out. So I was right, Jordan was just making small talk. Jordan acts pretentious again when she says the East does things better than the West because they spend time together and laugh instead of just talking about deal points and numbers. Here we get social engineering against an entire nation. I hate it when people say something is better simply for the fact that it is different. Different does not mean better or worse. Different is neutral. Maybe it's the cultural differences of the West and the East that influence the way each part of the world does business. But neither's business culture is better or worse than the other. I don't like it when American shows put on this self-loathing for the way American culture does things as a way to put down the entire nation. Pretentious culture people always do this, and it's really obnoxious. Maybe the writers mistake it for humility, but it's actually designed to subtly put down American culture. This is probably one of the worst types of social engineering that is used in shows because it's particularly insidious and demeaning. Jordan's butler enters the room to tell her she has an appointment in 5 minutes, and Jordan says she has to go check out some panic rooms. They talk about the road rage video, and Amy is discovering that everyone is finding out about it. Jordan says she wants to get to know Amy more, even though the deal looks good on paper, and that she can make herself at home until Jordan's done with her appointment. Jordan leaves. Paul sends Amy a text asking her how work is, and she gets defensive for some reason, messaging him back with, "Stop asking dumb questions." Why do women do this? Why is it so hard for a woman to answer a simple fucking question? If a guy asks, "How is work?" several acceptable answers are good, bad, kind of blah. Danny is eating some food after the church service, and Veronica and Edwin come over to say hi. They hand Danny a welcome form, and he notices the church has basketball events at the church on Fridays. Edwin says the team is really good. No one cares. Seriously, this episode is boring me to tears. I'm inhabited by a cry now. No, not just one cry. Many, many cries. Amy calls George and says Jordan is using the deal as leverage for hanging out and being friends, but she doesn't want to hang out. For once, I agree with Amy. I wouldn't go 2 seconds hanging out with Jordan without wanting to punch her in the face. George comforts her and says it's okay that they have to move their date night. Amy stops pacing and the sound of a door opening is heard. Nothing triggers the door to open, so I guess maybe motion sensors? Amy calls Jordan crazy as she walks into the room that contains a bunch of ugly crowns. None of the crowns are in cases or anything. It's weird. If Jordan has been collecting precious crowns, you'd think she'd have more security around them and not just have the door to the room open when someone randomly stands in front of it. George, being his hippie self, tells Amy not to be mean. Amy puts one of the crowns on her head that looks like a weird party hat. George says he found a cute plant and that he'll send the photo to Amy, but accidentally sends a photo of Mia instead. He says, "Shit, Amy, I can explain. I was just saving the caption." You're not a very good liar, George. Surprising, considering you lie about everything in your life because your whole demeanor is fake. You'd think all that practice would make you perfect. Dr. Lin is really going to get her money's worth with these two because they're going to need about 200 years of counseling. Amy hangs up on George. As Danny is leaving the church, he notices the sign is crooked, so he tries to straighten it out. Edwin sees Danny helping and thanks him for fixing it. This show seems to make their secondary characters have better morality and politeness than the main characters. That's backwards because the main characters are the ones we should be interested in. Edwin shows concern for Danny and asks him if his business has been slow. He did notice earlier as well that Danny was crying at church service, so he used his brain and his moral compass to ask Danny how he was doing. Danny gets embarrassed and lies, saying, "Slow? No, things are fast." Not the word you're looking for there, Danny, but not surprising considering your IQ isn't that high. Edwin offers for Danny to fix some things at the church and says he will pay him because the church is always happy to support a Korean-owned small business. This annoyed me because although it sounds like a nice thing to say, what it really says is I need to separate business owners by race and support certain ones because of their race. Racism is a very complicated topic because of things like this. What you should be doing is supporting a business if you like their products and if you like their services. The business owner's race shouldn't be a factor at all. If it is, you're being racist no matter how nice you think you're being. Danny is stupid and declines the offer for payment instead of getting a nice contract with Edwin's church because he wants to continue being poor so he can play the victim. The choices he makes baffle me. I'm not sure why some people do this. When presented with a good opportunity, they always decline it. But when presented with a bad opportunity, they always accept it. Danny does the leftist thing, which is to virtue signal that he does a lot of things for charity. Could explain why you're broke, Danny, you idiot. Edwin accepts that Danny wants to do the work for free. Edwin then asks, is it still a little crooked? Which reveals a secondary reason why Danny is broke. Idiots. Amy is in Jordan's backyard looking at the photos George sent her. Amy takes a photo of her legs and sends it to Paul, who responds with nice tan. Amy stares at her phone, unsure how to take Paul's comment, because I think this is meant to be some sort of reminder to Amy that she's not white. If the writers hadn't already shown incredible racism in episode 2, I wouldn't think anything about this comment, because nice tan is a compliment for a white person, and Paul thinks he's talking to a white person. Paul asks Amy if she wants to FaceTime. Amy obviously can't, or her ruse will be found out, so she says she doesn't have unlimited data. Paul sends Amy his phone number and asks if she wants to talk. Amy calls Paul, and he's very sweet as he asks, so who made your day so shitty, and where do I have to go to beat them up? See, this is how masculinity is. Paul offers to defend Amy's honor because she had a bad day. He is showing that he cares about how she feels, but he's also being assertive despite using a metaphor. Masculinity and caring are both traits of a real man. Amy vents about Jordan, and Paul continues the conversation by asking Amy what else she hates. Despite it being a weird question to ask, because people usually ask, what do you like? I think this is showing that Paul is aware of the context in the conversation they're having. Since Amy was venting about things she hates about Jordan, he's actually pretty smart with that question because he shows that he's listening to what she's saying. Amy says she hates work and wishes she could do nothing all day. Hate to break it to you, Amy, but if you were at home all day, you would still have to watch June. You can't do nothing all day. You have a daughter. You are a parent. Once again, Amy is annoyed by the consequences of her choosing the workforce lifestyle feminists brainwashed her into. Doing nothing all day is a common wish of a lot of people, but it's not actually the answer to being happy. Office Space, the movie, proved that. If you're unhappy with your work, you either need a different job or you need something else like a hobby to occupy your time. I could believe that Amy would be happy quitting her job and spending all day with June, because she expressed that she was jealous of Naomi, who is doing just that with her own daughter, Izzy. Paul says he really likes Kayla. Amy doesn't know how to respond because I think Paul has treated her the way she wishes George would. She's lost in thought, but then a crow flies by cawing, which snaps her out of her thoughts. She hangs up on Paul after having a moment of clarity, remembering that she's married. She blocks Paul's phone number, which is at least one step in the right direction if she wants to fix her marriage. Jordan's butler comes out to the backyard, startling Amy. He tells her Jordan has to reschedule because she got called off to a work emergency, but that Amy can stay as long as she wants. We see a building with a sign that says nightclub, and inside Danny and Isaac are sitting in massage chairs. I'm wondering if this is an abandoned nightclub and Isaac has some sketchy shit going on. Danny is still hung up on Veronica and calls Edwin untouchable because he leads the praise team. Isaac says something disgusting once again.
Dude, you touch him wherever the fuck you want, man.
Disgusting is not funny, Isaac. You haven't been funny yet. Isaac shows Danny some t-shirts he made that say chosen ones on them for the business. I guess we know how highly the writers think of themselves, entitled twats. Isaac then says he's filed the business paperwork and put the business under his name. Danny says,
Man, I always do the right thing.
Please tell me, where have you done the right thing? Where? In what universe? Was it when you drove through someone's flower bed? Was it When you tried to light Amy's car on fire? Or was it when you got upset at Paul for cleaning your home? It's the epitome of morality. Danny complains that he's doing church repairs for free. Edwin offered to pay you and you declined, you moron. You don't get to complain now that you're not going to get paid for it. It's your own fault that you declined the opportunity for business.
Just be smarter.
A man named Cain talks to Isaac, tells him he got the massage chairs on wholesale, and Isaac buys 2 chairs from Cain, one for him and one for Danny. Interesting name for this character, Cain, the name of the first murderer in the Bible. The episode gets more exciting as we see George and Amy sitting on a bed with their palms touching, staring at each other. Apparently, this is the intimacy exercise Dr. Lin told them to do. Amy gets bored, just as bored as I am, and asks, how much longer do we have? George says 22 minutes. Dr. Lin wants us to do the full 30. 30 minutes of staring at someone. You better really like their face. What is this exercise supposed to do? Drive you crazy? Dr. Lin is an evil genius. She's gonna have customers for life because they're never gonna fix their marriage at this rate. George says Junie kept working on her painting all night. Amy says she gets all of her talent from you. That's not a compliment. George notices that Amy looks like she's going to cry and asks her what's wrong, assuring her that she can talk to him. He guesses that she's sad about the Mia photo and goes to apologize, but Amy corrects him by saying,
There's this feeling I've had for a long time. I don't remember when it started. I can't pinpoint to exactly when or why, but it feels like the ground. But like right here. It never goes away.
She puts her hand on her heart and starts crying. Maybe she just came to the realization that she's been wasting her life acting in this horrible show. Did she just say a huge run-on sentence only to mean I have felt bad for a long time? I'll tell you how long I felt bad, about 22 minutes and 48 seconds. Amy says she got put on antidepressants in college, but it didn't help, then says,
I'm sorry, I'm just babbling.
Oh, welcome to self-awareness, Amy. I hope you enjoy your stay. But I'll wish you well, as you'll probably leave in about 2 seconds. George encourages Amy to keep talking. Amy says if she tells him, he won't understand. If you don't tell him, he'll definitely never understand, so just tell him.
Jesus Christ.
You're trying to fix your marriage. This is the time to tell him about things that are bothering you. Why are you taking marriage counseling if you don't even know what it means? This scene goes on forever and an eternity. George just keeps saying he understands. Amy doesn't want to tell him, and I just want both of them to fall off the bed so that at least something would happen. George says his life wasn't how he pictured either, and then he says this.
Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like had you and I never met.
Romantic. Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if I didn't have to be in your presence. Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if your face was the face of someone else whom I actually like. Amy is visibly hurt, and George is clueless to the cruelty of the words he just said and tells her that he wants her to know she's not alone. Danny is on the hill by the real estate sign again, talking to a loan officer on his phone. Danny's unsuccessfully trying to appeal to the loan officer's feelings by telling him a sob story that he is buying the house for his parents who need to move back from Korea. I really hate when people tell random stories to make people feel sorry for them and give them things out of pity. It's so manipulative and disgusting, but perfectly consistent for Danny's personality. The loan officer is another smart character, and he doesn't fall for Danny's horseshit. He tells Danny he doesn't have good credit. He tells Danny he needs a steady income and healthy checking balance to get approved for a mortgage. Danny is still trying to use the sob story angle. I don't think you understand. My parents are getting old and this land isn't going to be available for much longer. I don't understand why everyone else gets approved for a loan but me. Wah, 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 wah. Here's the leftist propaganda where they take everything personally, and they think they're the only person in the world who has problems. They always think everyone's out to get them. No one wants to give them anything because poor me, boo-hoo.
How about no?
The loan officer understands perfectly that you don't have the credit, income, or checking balance that would say you could pay the mortgage back. That's why he's not giving it to you, you moron. The loan officer is saving you from imminent foreclosure because that's what happens to people with bad credit and no income who get loans. If a loan officer gives a bad candidate a loan only to foreclose on the property 2 months later, it's not good for either the bank or the bad candidate. Sometimes saying no to someone actually helps them. The loan officer says if Danny can come up with a down payment, they can talk. Danny is about to hang up since the loan officer is too smart for Danny's bullshit, but then he pauses and asks if his church can get a loan for repairs. The loan officer says he can look into it. Amy and George are with June once again, lying to her about her artwork. Stunning and brave and good and perfect. Great life lessons from these parents. They're teaching June how to be a pathological liar. George asks June if she wants to hang up her artwork, and she says it's not done yet. Amy says it's perfect, stunning and brave and good and perfect, and that they should put it up. And June reluctantly says yes. Look, she's caught on to lying already. George sees that Jordan is at the front door and tells Amy. Amy goes to the living room and sits down with Jordan, who has just brought the term papers over for Amy's business deal. At this point, I'm hoping they just make the fucking deal already. It's been 2 episodes and they've just kept hinting Amy has a business deal, but nothing has moved forward for 3 episodes. I don't know why they keep dragging it out. No one cares. George brings some drinks over to Amy and Jordan and then leaves. Amy goes over the term papers and finds out that Jordan has changed one of the clauses, so she brings it up. Amy questions why she has to work at the store for 5 more years because she wanted to sell Jordan the store so she could quit and spend time with her family. We find out that Jordan put that stipulation in the term paper because she's projecting her feminist women in the workforce attitude onto Amy. We get an instance of feminist propaganda. This is where girl bosses think everyone else should be a girl boss because she has to recruit more girl boss minions to take over the world because the future is female! Feminists are tyrants, and Jordan proves that here with her trying to convince Amy that she shouldn't spend time with her family. But don't worry, feminists are not against families. They're not trying to destroy nuclear families. Jordan says, I know, but you are the face of the brand, and the board feels that's an important deal point. Jordan says, it's not up to me, it's the board. But I don't believe her for 1 second. She can't even look Amy in the eye every time she blames the board. My suspicion that she is lying is confirmed when she then invites Amy to a work conference under the excuse of, you can talk to them yourselves, take my jet, bring your family, pretending that she is being nice while mentioning her private jet to entice Amy like, look at how good my girl boss life is. I have a jet. Don't you want one too? Jordan couldn't be more obvious that she wants Amy to keep being in the workforce despite Amy trying to make a choice for her own life. Jordan continues being more obvious as she says, Amy, listen to me. This, gesturing around Amy's nice, expensive, large house, is not what you want. That is feminist ideology summed up in 6 simple words. Why? What's wrong with Amy's house? It's actually a nice house. The projection is laid on thick. If someone tells you that you don't want something, just replace the word you with the word I, and you find the truth of their statement. Jordan doesn't want a home life, so therefore, according to her insufferable tyrant feminist attitude, Amy shouldn't want it either. Jordan continues with, you want more. Trust me, you're gonna thank me later. Once again, projection. Jordan catches George walking around cleaning up June's toys. She looks over at him and says, this is why we have wives. Typical feminist, emasculating a man by calling him a wife. It's also very telling that feminists don't care about women either, because why would they use the word wife as an insult? Danny is talking to the congregant at the church who prayed for him about doing repairs. Danny gives the congregant an estimate of $100,000 to $120,000 for repairs. He's just gonna steal the money and buy that house he keeps obsessing over. The congregant asks Danny how much he'd want for labor, and Danny says he won't be charging the church. Why? Charge for your labor so you can make some money. If you charged for your services, you'd have money. If you had accepted Edwin's offer to pay you initially, you would have money. Why do I have to explain how transactions work to a handyman? The congregant leaves. Danny texts Isaac with this message. Yo, Isaac, my plan worked. Once the church secures a loan, we can start phase 2. Predictable. This is exactly what I thought he was doing the second he asked the loan officer if his church could take out a loan. This whole scene is pointless. I'm still surprised Danny hasn't burst into flames yet. After narrowly escaping being smited by a bolt of lightning, Danny notices Edwin and Veronica on the stage discussing church music plans. He touches a guitar that is laying on the chairs. When Veronica calls over and asks, "Do you still play?" Danny says, "A little bit," and I still don't care. No one cares. Amy's at her store talking to Mia about Jordan's offer when she sees Paul walk in. Amy tells Mia to go back to the stockroom because she doesn't want Paul to see her. Amy goes over and asks Paul if she can help him. Paul says he likes the store and asks if Kayla Lexington works there. Amy says no. Paul apologizes for wasting Amy's time, but then asks if Amy can recommend a plant that is easy to take care of. Amy needs to rush Paul out of the store, so she gives him a plant and says it's on the house. Just as he's about to leave, Mia comes out asking Amy a question. Paul sees Mia, recognizes her face from the pictures, calls out Kayla, which confuses Mia. Amy immediately tells Paul he has to leave, and he asks in Mia's direction, "Is this your asshole boss?" Amy grabs Paul's arm and drags him outside. She confesses that Mia's name is not Kayla, and that she stole Mia's photos to send them to Paul. For once, she's not being fake. It seems Paul has a good influence on Amy because this is the first time she's told the truth to anyone. Paul is sad and asks, "Okay, so you were catfishing me?" At this point, Paul has every right to walk away or storm off because Amy lied to him, but he sticks around and lets Amy explain herself. Paul has manners. Does a different writer write this character? He's the only character with any common sense. He wants to improve himself. He listens to people when they talk. He has masculinity. He has morality. If you're capable of writing a character like Paul, why are you then writing everyone else as insufferable twat waffles? This brings me to why I hate this show. They are capable of writing a good personality, but they're choosing not to. There shouldn't be only one character with consistent morality in a show. Even shows about criminal empires have more than one character who struggles with morality during at least one point in their lives. After Amy explains herself, Paul decides he's going to stay and ends up kissing Amy. June manages to make her painting worse because now the Smurf people appear to be in a fireball. She added red and orange to her painting, and the only thing showing now is the heads of the Smurfs as they're engulfed by the red and orange paint. She's growing up to be just as talented as George, which is still not a compliment. George is saving the captions off Mia's photos by whacking off to Mia's photo in the bathroom. Paul stops kissing Amy and tells her, "I think you're hotter than Kayla." Danny is playing guitar at the church, still managing to avoid bursting into flames. That was the end of episode 3. This one was the most boring one yet. Danny tries really hard to get smited by conning a church. Amy found a new friend in Paul who is surprisingly still normal. George is still as effeminate as ever. June is adding pathological liar and talentless artist to her resume. Isaac is still completely pointless and disgusting. Jordan shows her insufferable feminist side. And a loan officer surprised Danny with the reality of how loans work. Until Hollywood decides to make entertainment again, I'll be reviewing terrible shows. Next time, I'll be reviewing episode 4 of Beef. Please don't be stupid, and I'll see you on the next video.